Today on The State of Us, 4.3 million workers are missing. Where did they go? U.S. jobless claims reach a 52-year low. Welcome to The State of Us. I'm your host, Justin T. Weller, joined, of course, today by our friendly redneck liberal, Mr. Lance L. Jackson. Many economists are expecting the labor shortage to last for years, and some think it could be permanent. You heard right, there's 4.3 million workers missing. So where did they go? Well, U.S. jobless claims are at a 52-year low. That's right. Initial claims for jobless benefits fell last week to 199,000, the lowest in 52 years. So things have got to be great, right? Well, we'll find out. But before we dive in, our friendly redneck liberal, I'm sure, has the word of the day.
Well, we need to expedite this problem, and that's the word of the day, expedite. 3 syllables, E-X-P-E-D-I-T-E. It is a transitive verb, and it means to speed up or make easy the progress or action of. So we need to figure out a solution quickly. We need to expedite it and get the economy back rolling again. So there you go. I've already given it away. There is a problem, and we need to fix it, at least in my humble opinion.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, show's done, folks. Minute and 50 seconds, we nailed it. It's over.
I don't have to go on and on and on. I can back it up and tell you.
Okay.
I mean, you don't want to wait for things. We need to get more workers.
Okay.
You want cheaper prices and you don't want inflation. We need more workers.
How do we get more workers though?
Well, that wasn't the question. The question was, is this a problem or not that everybody's leaving?
Okay.
And so I'm saying it's a problem because people they're not wanting to wait as long. Customer service is not as good as people would like it to be. And inflation is up. And all three of those things could be improved, in my opinion, if there were more workers in the workforce. How you get those people back in? Oh, that's a whole nother question. But your first question was, is this a problem or not? And I think for those three reasons, it is a problem.
Well, and the big question we let off is, where did they go? These people that are missing, because
they stayed home.
The data tells us that the share of the population 16 years or older, either working or looking for work, is right now far below where it was in February of 2020. That was a level of 63.3% of the population. As of September of this year, it was 61.6% of the population. So a smaller portion of the population is either working or looking for work than was looking for work in February of 2020. So we talked about a lot of people early retired, right? They're gone, done, out of there. But the other thing is, it's important to keep in mind that workers are quitting at or near the highest rates on record in sectors like manufacturing and retail, trade, transportation, utilities, as well as professional and business sectors. Because right now, and we've discussed this before, the labor market is favoring the workers because of, as Lance pointed out, everybody wants faster service, better service, and that means that we got to hire more people. And we ideally got to try to hire good people, but a lot of companies have to settle for just a warm body because they got to have something over nothing. And that's where this challenge comes in of the workers have leverage, but there's only so many people, right, that can actually or are willing to work. And that is a smaller percentage of the current U.S. population than it was in February 2020. And that's where we talked about, I don't know, a month or two ago, Lance, right? There's 10 million open jobs and only some 7 million unemployed people. And part of that gap is these 4.3 million workers who have vanished.
But as we've talked about that, unemployed workers are different than people who are out there who could work. Because to be an unemployed worker, that means you have to be looking for a job by the government standards.
Exactly.
So what we have here is that you have an issue here that we need to expedite in some way. And that is that for many young parents, they have childcare issues. And as we've seen, unfortunately in the United States, we don't pay a lot of money to childcare workers. And so with the open job market, if I can make $10 an hour, $12 an hour taking care of somebody's young children at a daycare center, and I can go to Amazon and work in the warehouse and make $18 an hour, I'm not going to be taking care of young children if I want to advance myself economically. And so then what happens is, on one hand, you have a shortage of daycare workers who are turning away families, and therefore then the number of positions available means that it's gone down, which means then the cost goes up. And then you start to get to the point where, as this one young mother from Riverside, California says, she goes, it's not worth it. I was working in public relations for a church at about $31,000 a year, but her husband got a new job. They're making money, the high cost of childcare. They decided that it was better for her to stay home with their 3-year-old and 1-year-old until at least they reached school age, because she couldn't make enough money working part-time to even cover the expenses of the childcare and, clothing and the extra food and eating out more and all of that. And so people are, so there's just the childcare perspective of where are all the workers gone? Well, and they give another example of a husband whose wife has a really good job and she picked up a few more hours, and he stayed home. It was going to be for like a 3-month period. It's now turned into 11 months because he's found out he likes spending time with his new child and doing the cooking and the cleaning and the grocery shopping. And his wife likes her job and she's okay to work a little bit more. And so it's like, he said, I don't know if I want to go back into the job market because I'm enjoying the time I have with my family that I never knew I could have. So how do you want to break that down? There's 4 or 5 different pieces in there just with the childcare issue of where the workers have gone.
Well, and you have this convergence, I think, too, of a unique phenomenon in American history where, like in August this year, 4.3 million people quit their jobs, which is a record. There's never been that many people that quit in a single month, dating back to December of 2000. So you have 4.3 million people quit, but then we also get to report, right, that in November, jobless claims have a 52-year record low. So even though we set a record for the number of people that quit their jobs, we also set a record for the number of people who were jobless, i.e. a very small number, just 199,000 were added. So the thing there that tells us, right, is there's a lot of people that quit, but a lot of those people turned around and got another job apparently right away. They didn't stay out of the labor force very long. What's not reflected in those numbers, and this is the bigger issue, right, is some of those people that Lance talked about, which are, they quit, right, but they didn't end up going back at all. And they're not looking to go back. So they're not counted. And that's where that percentage of the population number that I mentioned at the beginning is really important to understand, because that's a better reflection. It's the percentage of the population who are either working or looking for work, right? February of 2020, that was 63.3% of Americans who are 16 years or older were either looking for work or were actively employed. But in September of 2021, it was 61.6%. Now, that doesn't sound like a massive difference, but that's 4.3 million people.
Right. And case in point, I'm 60 years old, and for most people, they would still be working. I know my brother-in-law and sister are the same age as my wife and me, and they're both still working. Well, I'm retired. I'm not looking for work. Do I sometimes work? Do I sometimes want to do something to make some money? Yes. Am I doing a lot of volunteer stuff? Yes, I'm doing that, but I'm not actively seeking employment. And my wife is talking about retiring this May, and this May, she won't be 60 yet, but she's going to retire. So we're going to be, in our late 50s, early 60s, and we're both going to be retired. When in the same situation, my brother-in-law and sister, same ages as we are. I mean, we're within less than a month birthdays for both of us. They're still going to be working and planning on working for another 5 to 7 years. So I'm not unemployed. My wife won't be unemployed, but we're both going to leave the workforce because, we're going to slow down our lifestyle and we're not going to be able to do as many things, but we want to be able to, go for a walk in the morning, cook a meal, eat in the middle of the day if we want to, take a nap, read a book, live life at our pace instead of a work pace. So, how do you entice people like me back into the work?
Well, that was exactly going to be my question as you were talking, because who better to ask than the people that are leaving, right? And obviously your wife's not yet an example of that, but is, to your point, probably soon going to be an example.
The two of us have 5 to 7 years of good work left in us.
At least.
Right.
Because there's plenty of people who are, in fact, some of the clients for True Chat are above that classic 65 years old,
Correct.
Who are absolutely still working. Now, has how they're working changed? Sure. Are they putting in 80-hour weeks? Probably not, but I think the situation we're in also calls for, and that's where we talk about the advantage being shifted to the workers, right? Getting a better understanding of how do you get a Lance Jackson back into the workforce? What does an employer have to do to make that happen? Because, it's a basic addition and subtraction issue, right? There are 10 million jobs, and at the moment, there's only about 7 million people looking for jobs. And you can't plug the 7, and we've talked about that a lot. It's not a perfect 1-for-1. You can't say, we just need to find 3 million more people. No, because, the 7 million people can't just take 7 million of those jobs, because not all of those jobs are a 1-for-1. They may not be qualified, but hypothetically, assuming that 40% of them could get one of the 10 million available jobs, we still need to find some 6 million, workers that we don't have, at least. So how do we find 6 million workers? Well, unless Star Trek comes around and we, create replicators and clone people, we have to either bring people back to the workforce that have left, or we have to get more people, right? Those are, one of those things has to happen, or we have to reduce the number of jobs available. We have to do one of those 3 things. So which of those 3 things, and how might we go about one of those 3 things? Well, to find out, keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back. United States jobless claims are at a 52-year low, and at least 4.3 million workers are missing. Where'd they go? Well, as we talked about in the first segment, many of them have left the workforce. They're done. They're out of here. Because for lots of different reasons, Lance describes some of them, childcare being a good example, there are things that people have decided they would rather do than work under the system as the system is currently designed. The challenge that the economy is now facing is we have an economy that would like to grow, that is actually trying to grow, and consumer demand sort of flying in the face of the way that our economic recoveries usually takes shape. Like if you look at the, post 2008, it took a number of years before consumer demand just returned to where it was. And now we actually have consumer demand outpacing where it was. And arguably the pandemic is not over, So we have robust demand, we have less workers, and so we have companies that are less able to fill the demand. And regardless of whether or not we think those people leaving the workforce is good or bad, the reality is it poses a pending economic issue. It's a wonderful thing to have, the demand that we have, but failing to meet the demand can spell a disaster all its own. So the question is, and that's what we're looking at today, what are we going to do about this? We understand there's a lot of different reasons people may have left, but the first part of that is we talked about there's three things we can do, right? We can say, decrease the number of job openings. We can bring people back who left, or we can find new people. And looking at finding new people. So how could we find new people? Well, we could increase the birth rate, right? But the problem is that's a very delayed effect. We got to wait 16 years at least, even if we drastically increase the birth rate today, before that's going to have any measurable impact on the workforce. So unfortunately, that's not a near-term fix. The other way we could find new people, Lance, right, is we could allow people from other places to maybe come fill some jobs.
Well, that you took down, you must have been written over my shoulder, because the one way to expedite this issue is to allow immigrants to come in. And that's something that we've done in this country since we were colonies. We need people to chop down trees and build ships so we could sell supplies and raw materials back to England and to get the finished products that we needed here in the colonies. And we brought in Scandinavian and German lumberjacks to do the work, because there weren't enough people here to chop down enough trees and enough skilled craftsmen to build the ships that were necessary to ship all the raw materials back to England so that the colonists can make money. So we brought immigrants in. We've done it in most of the 20th century because we can't find enough Americans who are willing to work out in the fields, especially in the western part of the country, as well as here in the Midwest and different places, to pick the vegetables, to pick the crops, and to harvest them and to get them to market. And so we've had this long running affair with with Mexico and Central America to bring workers or seasonal workers in to pick our fruits and vegetables, because there aren't enough, quote, American citizens who are willing to take those jobs for the wages that are paid. And the one thing we've heard since the age of Donald Trump is, well, we're going to stop these immigrants from taking American jobs. Folks, I never did agree with that statement, but in this case, nobody else is taking the jobs.
Well, and if every American that wanted a job had a job, we would still not have enough Americans to fill the jobs. Right. I mean, just because we're talking about people that want a job, right? I mean, there's the other issue that you brought up of the people who are not looking for a job. But if we just take, people who at the moment have their hand up and say, I would like a job, those people who are, I am willing to work if I can have a job. If we put every one of them into a job, we still would not have enough people to fill all the jobs.
Exactly. And, I've been retired for 7 years and I've worked off and on. And so now what you need, another solution, is a paradigm shift in American business. And that is, how do you get people back? Well, for me, it is part-time work with the pay commensurate to my level of education and ability. And when I've gotten that or close to that, then I have been teased back into the workforce for shorter periods of time. And like for my spouse, when she retires, she wants to go into the workforce, but she wants to work when she wants to work. And so there are a couple of opportunities that she's going to have where she hires in as a substitute secretary. And when there are jobs available in the areas where she wants, she gets to pick the areas that she wants. And then when jobs are available, she gets contacted and she gets to decide whether or not she wants to take it. So that's a paradigm shift, because for the most part, employers in the last 2 years have, according to the people that I'm talking to, are telling me that they want full-time workers. And so there needs to be a paradigm shift and say, well, instead of 4 full-time workers, maybe I'll hire 10 part-time workers, because I can't find 4 full-time workers, but I have somebody who wants to work 3 hours a day. I have somebody who wants to work on Thursdays only. And so now it's that paradigm shift on business to recreate the jobs that they have available and how they're going to fill them. Or, hey, here's one. How about develop a consortium of businesses who provide childcare services? Okay. McDonald's, Wendy's, Arby's, whoever. I know they're owned by different people. But let's just say they all go together and there's an empty building in town, and they all say, we're going to give this much money and we're going to set up a child care center that can take care of this many children. And now, hey, you get a job at McDonald's and you work at least 25, 30 hours a week. We will provide child care service for you. We'll man it. It's part of your pay. You're only making $12 an hour, $14 an hour. We'll also then, your child care is free. You still don't have health insurance. You don't have, there's a lot of other things that I think need to be done as well. But again, you're talking about how do you solve the problem? Well, my company, I'm too small. I can't afford childcare. But if I go together with other businesses in my community and we rent a building out and we hire qualified staff and then we offer it as a extra for working at our business, how many single parents and young families would you get who would say, hey, childcare is an issue for me, but now childcare is going to be taken care of the businesses. And if you're a big factory, you're like Amazon, why don't you open your own childcare service? Why don't you take part of that warehouse and develop it, and people can bring their kids to work and drop them off? I know that professional sports teams do this. They hire staff, and the players and the players' spouses can bring the children to the workplace, to the arena, to the ballpark, and then they're taken care of by professional childcare workers. And it's a perk of the business. And there have been people who have made decisions based on that, saying, I will sign a contract with this team because they provide that service. Well, why can't big businesses like an Amazon or a Walmart or a Tesla do something like that? If you're struggling to find workers, offer childcare as a perk of getting the job.
Benefits continue to become, a larger and larger consideration. I think childcare is huge. I mean, if you have children, obviously if you don't have children, that doesn't do very much unless you're planning to have children soon. But if you have children, it's a major time consumer, and not just time, but money, right? We talk about frequently with the youth center in Urbana, one of the main reasons cited by parents that they miss or do not show up to work on time is childcare related issues. It's like the number one reason that they do not show up on time. They're late or they don't come at all because of external factors affecting childcare, right? My child gets sick. The babysitter is not available. Daycare is closed today. Whatever it is, something comes up that doesn't have anything to do with their ability to work. It has everything to do with, I have to now go take care of this problem. So I think it makes business sense to say, if we can address that, and to your point, especially with large businesses, if we can centralize that to you bring your child to where you're already coming, there's also trickle benefits to that, right? As well. I mean, one of the trickle benefits is you're not spending so much time on the road because you don't have to drive to where your child is taken care of, then drive to work, then drive there, then drive home. You go to one place.
And if you wanted to go see your child during your lunch hour, just to say hi or to check on them, you could go because the daycare center would be at the work site. And then, oh, wait a minute. So now I'm a happy worker because I know my child is safe and sound and happy. Now I'm a more productive worker.
And if we talk about other benefits for companies, right, it probably improves company loyalty because, right? I mean, it's a consideration.
Where else can I get this?
They make friends. Your child makes friends, right? So yanking them out to go take another job is now a new consideration. So there's a worker retention component as well that I would imagine would be beneficial to companies. And I'm sure people that are far smarter than Lance and I can do the math to tell us, just how much of an additional return doing this would generate for companies. And I'd be surprised if some of these companies aren't looking at it already anyway because of the current issue with workers. But the thing that came to mind when we were talking about worker mobility that I want to throw out there is the amount of time and money that is wasted with companies on new hire, paperwork, onboarding, etc. Because operating companies, even small companies, the amount of paperwork to bring a new employee on and the processing that goes with that and the setup of payroll when we have worker mobility the way we do, if you only stay at a job for 3 or 4 months, that company almost has assuredly taken a loss on your position. Just the cost of bringing you on board was greater than the return that you generated for the company over that 2 to 3 month period. But companies don't have much of a choice because they got to fill the position. So they fill them and, you leave and it is what it is. But a thought I had was something that, again, people smarter than I should look into, I think, would be examining a way to, and it seems counterintuitive, but improve worker mobility because it will save companies money and workers are doing it anyway, right? There are entire departments at large companies, the beloved human resources, that their whole career is mainly devoted to finding people, processing the paperwork, and when people leave, processing the paperwork. And that's a potential area where if we can cut back on the number of people that have to do those jobs, maybe we could move some of those people we don't need into jobs that we have to fill to better serve customers.
Well, and the savings that you get from not having that then can be directed to other parts of the company.
Childcare, maybe.
That would exactly.
I mean,
right. That's what I was thinking.
And I think the other thing is it's counterintuitive because you might say, well, if I'm a company, why would I want to improve worker mobility, making it easier for them to get onboarded, making it easier for them to leave? Well, one of the things that we were talking about before the show is the human tendency to resist control, right? If you don't feel like the company's controlling you, you might actually be more likely to stay. So even though it's counter to what may run as basic logic of, well, I want to make it hard for people to leave and, we're going to make sure that onboarding's a thing. That way, it's more difficult because people have to go through all this training and stuff. They're not going to be as likely to leave. And it's like, well, it'd be interesting to see what if we make that easier? What if we make it simpler and shorter and less obtrusive paperwork wise? If people don't feel like they're being forced to stay, they might be more likely to stay. If for no other reason than that natural human tendency to, well, I'm in control. The company's they're not making me do this. I'm doing it because I want to do it. If you feel like your company is like, if you're not happy here, then we think you should find a different job. But if you are happy here, then we'd love for you to stay. I think if more companies had that approach, it would be interesting to see from a data standpoint how that would play out, in productivity and also worker retention. So what else could be done? We've talked a lot about existing workers. We talked some about getting workers back into the workforce. But really, what are these people that are 50, 60, 70 years old who have left the workforce? We've identified some of what they need, but how do we fit that in with what companies can realistically do? Well, there's more to talk about. Hopefully, we'll find some answers. Keep it here on A State of Us. We'll be right back. So Lance said part-time jobs here and there if it's a good return based on my skill set. So how do companies meet that demand and need? Because company A is sitting here and they say, I need a full-time person, to do XYZ. Well, I can't find a full-time person, but there's 3 part-time people who could fill this job. And we just talked about in the last segment, one of the goals would be to reduce new hire paperwork. So an issue for companies would be, it's a lot more expensive for me to hire 3 part-time people to do one job than it is to hire one person to do that one job. One of the ways I think we can balance that is what I ended off the last segment with, which is reducing some of those complexities of hiring new workers. And I get, we want the data, we want the reporting. People know if they listen to this show, I like the data. At the same time, I'm wondering at what price should that data and reporting come at? Because the reality is, if that data and reporting is the difference between Lance taking a job and being part of the workforce or him not taking a job and being part of the workforce, I would think we would all be on the side of we would want him to get the job because we don't have enough people, and if you're not of that opinion, then you need to be okay with letting more people into the country. I mean, I don't know, Lance, is there another solution here that I'm missing? You're either okay making it easier for people who have left the workforce to come back into it, primarily people who have either retired early or just retired generally, or you have to be okay letting more people into the country, because those are the only two immediate ways to address the issue.
Well, there is a third, but it's tends to be people would like
frown on
this isn't what we want to do. But like the whole hotel industry has been discussing eliminating the hot breakfast and other food and beverage services because, hey, we don't have enough people. And also asking guests to request daily room cleaning rather than automatically providing it. It says, we don't have to clean the room. I mean, we cleaned it before you came in, changed the sheets. We'll clean it every 5 days unless you ask for it. That then means we can take fewer people and have them do things. If we don't offer food and beverage services, we can then take that personnel and put them into other jobs since we're having trouble finding this. And hotels have seen a drop of about 17%, and they're paying their employees 13% more than they were before the pandemic. Then there are restaurants who are having customers and making money, but they don't have enough people to stay open. So they start to cut back on the days that they're open, or they cut back the hours that they're open because they can't find people to work to keep things open. So that's not necessarily a positive to the economy, but it is a way that people are dealing with it. If we can't provide all the services that we used to provide, well, we're going to find ways then, to your point, to spread the workers that we have to be more efficient. And I've seen that happen, right? I'm going by. I know that coaching basketball, I have a game. I'm running late. It's 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I'm on the way home. I'm going to pick up something to eat. Restaurant closed. I'm like, I can't even pick up a sandwich. I can't pick up a burrito. I can't even get a pizza. The pizza place is closed. Why? Because they don't have enough workers to stay open. Oh, even though overtime has doubled since the pandemic. Used to be about 2 hours a week. The average worker was working in the food industry overtime. Now it's a little bit over 4. So the people that are working, but the way that a business will do it is, well, we'll just cut services. Even if we're making money, that's the only thing we can do. We have to either shut down or you have longer wait times. So there's another way to solve the problem. I mean, It's not just immigration or bringing in
but if
the
we
people
don't
who
like
want
that,
to work.
If we don't like that option.
Hence the opening of the show when I said I think it's a problem. Most of us are upset that it takes longer. It's more expensive. Service is not as good. It's not as convenient for us. Well, the only way you solve those problems is to get more workers. And if you don't find that solution, then these will continue to occur to the point that then they become the norm, right? Because I'm so old, I remember when places didn't stay open until 9 and 10 o'clock at night. If you wanted to eat out, you were done by 8 o'clock because that's the time schedule that everybody was on. But then as we expanded business and went to more around the clock workplaces, the restaurant industry responded by staying open longer. But if you want to run that second shift now at your business, you need businesses to be open so that those workers can have the opportunity to live their life as well.
And I think for the other thing that comes into play that we've been covering this year is automation, right? I mean, especially in service level jobs where things can be automated. We talked about, it was Rallies that is, looking at automated deep fryers, the automated fry cook that can pick up the
that was
French fries.
That was White Castle.
White Castle. Okay.
Rallies had automated order takers. Whereas the company, the computer's taking the order,
right,
not the person in the store.
Yes.
And so, I ran into that one place where their machine was down. And so even though there were workers in the store, the manager couldn't override the system. So they couldn't take orders for 20 minutes while they were waiting for the computer to reboot,
reinitialize,
to run the order taking.
Yeah.
Crazy. So people are in the store, but they can't take your order because the computer system is down that they use to take the order, so that they don't only have to have people there to make the food. They don't have anybody there to take orders.
So, I mean, and that's the other way that companies are combating this problem, right? Is increasingly looking at, well, how do we eliminate these jobs altogether? And that can be a reduction in service, but it can also be, if you're going to McDonald's, you expect French fries. So McDonald's probably not going to cut the French fries, but they might be able to get rid of the person that makes the French fries. And to Lance's point, that is one of the ways you solve the job. Because, if you were making French fries, they probably assign you to something else to help fill in what they can't fill in otherwise. Because the other thing is, we're seeing a lot of companies raising wages. We've been talking about this for years. And I think Lance and I, will both tell you this is great because this is capitalism doing what capitalism does, right? It is demand is greater than supply. So what is happening? The cost for that supply is increasing, i.e. wages are going up. The issue is that it doesn't increase supply, right? All it does is make you more competitive to attain your supply, to attain the workers you need, because it doesn't create, generally speaking, it doesn't create more workers. Now, it may lure some of those retired people back in. Lance may not be exactly the person you'd hire to be the greeter at Walmart, but there are people, I'm sure Lance's age, who have retired who's saying, if I get paid $15 an hour to say hi to people at Walmart, well, shoot, I'll do that for a few hours a week.
When it reaches the level of compensation that the individual is comfortable with, commensurate to their skills or whatever it is they're looking for,
whatever standard they set,
then they'll come back. A, I can do it. B, it's part-time. I'm getting paid to do it. And it fulfills that need to see other human beings throughout the day. And those are the things that you have to fill, whatever it is within that individual. You can expedite the problem. And hey, isn't it great that all these years we've talked about raising the minimum wage and we're seeing the minimum wage go up now because through capitalism? It's not the government hasn't raised the minimum wage, but businesses are having to offer more money. So does that mean that it's kind of an esoteric minimum wage hike? And, but now what do we have? Oh, inflation. So I'll just leave it with this. You don't like inflation, but you're also saying, well, I don't want immigration. You're going to get one or the other. Think about that.
So what do you think? Send us an email, podcast@thestateofus.org. Maybe you've got a solution that's not one of the three things that Lance and I came up with. But why do we have this conversation today, Lance?
Well, that's because here at True Chat, we have a mission to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And hopefully you've enjoyed today's show and you share the thoughts and you have discussions with your friends. And if they say, well, where can I listen to this show? This sounds pretty good. I want to hear it for myself. Tell them they can find us as a podcast on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, and everywhere podcasts are found.
You can hear The State of Us Tuesdays and Thursdays as a podcast and on the weekends on traditional AM and FM radio across the country. For The State of Us on True Chat in Urbana, Ohio, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I expedited a victory 4-0 through a shutout today. I'm Lance Jackson.
Special thanks to our producer, Mr. Bradley Butch, and thank you all, our audience, for keeping the true score in your heart. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.